Welcome to yet another one of my coronavirus related videos. Today what we're going to talk about is the use of cannabis in the face of coronavirus. Now you might think, what in the world do those two have in common? Well, they're actually related. How so? Let me explain it this way. You know how when you get an organ transplant, let's say you need a new kidney and you get it from somebody else, somebody lovingly donates you a kidney. A lot of work involved, a lot of pain. They donated it, you received it, surgery was involved. So you want to keep it. The one thing that you fear most is that your body will reject it. Your immune system will see that new kidney as foreign, and your lymphocytes, your immune cells, will target it and kill it. Man, what a waste. I mean, not only can you die, but that brand new organ that somebody donated to you is lost. And you're worse off than you were than if you hadn't had it in the first place, okay? So you want to suppress that. Turns out that marijuana products do have a role in graft versus host rejection. How so, you might ask? Well, turns out that the key ingredients in marijuana, THC and CBD, these are the principal psychoactive, well, not necessarily psychoactive, but the principal chemicals in marijuana. THC is psychoactive, CBD is not in the way that most people think. What they have in common, though, is that both of them bind to cannabis 2 receptors on your immune cells. All of your lymphocytes have CB2 receptors. These have nothing to do with the CB1 receptors in your head that make you feel certain things that are psychoactive and so forth. These are not psychoactive. The CB2 receptors are on your immune cells. And what happens when THC or CBD binds to these? It turns them off. That is why right now we're looking at medications that will bind to the CB2 receptors so that when people receive that brand new organ, they can take that drug, not get high because it's not binding to CB1 receptors. They're specifically looking at molecules that only bind to the CB2 receptor, okay? But by taking these, maybe you can prevent or help prevent graft versus host rejection. It suppresses your immune system, specifically those T cells. Now, the lymphocytes, we have lymphocytes. Those are major players. Those cells are big-time major players in the overall immune response. You've got B lymphocytes, which are responsible for making antibodies, and then you got your T lymphocytes. These are like little Pac-Men that go over there and munch on enemies, things that don't belong in your body. They help you fight things off. They help fight off things like fungi that are infecting you, okay? Bacteria, viruses, cancer. When your cells get old and die, they come in and they chew them up so that they don't just stay there like a corpse in your body, okay? They get rid of them. They eat them up for you, okay? Your immune system, when it's working, helps fight off infection and cancer. So, what about viral infection? Well, I want you to think about this. If it is true that your lymphocytes are an important part of your immune system and marijuana products suppress them, then what might that do for a viral illness like coronavirus? Well, a few things you want to keep in mind here. Got a few papers in front of me. One of them here. T-cell responses are required for protection from clinical disease for a virus clearance in severe respiratory syndrome coronavirus-infected mice. So these are mice specifically infected with SARS, and it turns out that the T-cell response is absolutely critical in clearing it. And if you do not have optimal T-cell activity, if your T-cells are not in shape with their bills all paid, okay, full of good nutrients and ready to go, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, if your T-cell response is suboptimal, then these are the mice that succumb to severe SARS pneumonia. What this paper is basically saying that in mice with suboptimal T cells, if those T cells are impaired and not doing their job properly, then those mice were much more likely to succumb and die from the SARS virus infection. Now, SARS is a coronavirus like COVID-19. there is a lot of similarity between the two. In fact, it appears that this COVID-19 was engineered from SARS. It does appear to be an engineered virus, by the way. It appears to be engineered to specifically infect humans. The infection rate is incredibly high. It's one of the highest I've seen in any virus, okay? So, that tells us something. The last sentence in the abstract here, it says, these studies are the first to show that T cells play a critical role in SARS coronavirus clearance, and that suboptimal T cell response contributes to the pathological changes observed in SARS. Okay, so do you need your T cells to be functioning properly without any suppression? The answer is yes. Now, maybe humans and mice are completely different. And that's not true. Humans don't need T cells, okay? You might want to go with that. All right, here's another paper. This one was published in the European Journal of Pharmacology. And the title is Cannabidiol, a non-psychotropic plant-derived cannabinoid, decreases inflammation in a mouse model of acute lung injury, role for the adenosine A2 receptor. And what this paper is basically about is that cannabidiol basically binds to those CB2 receptors on the immune cells of the lung. And it grossly reduces inflammatory activity in the lung. It shuts down things like T cells. So some people might think, well, you have your CBD and your THC, and I've done other YouTube programs on marijuana, and I talked very much about how wonderful CBD was. CBD is a good thing. I'm pro CBD and quite anti THC. However, what we're seeing in these studies is that CBD, the good stuff that is in marijuana, even that, when it comes to coronavirus, can set you back. We have evidence that it binds to those CB2 receptors and turns off the immunity. It shuts down immunity. It impairs immunity, which opens you up for very much pathology, very much sickness from the coronavirus. There's a case that I heard about a few days ago of a child, I think an 11 or 12-year-old, that was receiving high doses of CBD for some chronic illness and developed the coronavirus infection and killed him. Okay, now normally you don't hear stories of children dying from coronavirus. It's very, very rare. But in this case, there is strong suspicion that it was the CBD that resulted in the child's death because of the activation of the CB2 receptors, which suppressed the T cell activity and therefore allowed the coronavirus to run wild in the lungs, resulting in more serious disease. All right, here's another paper, Journal of Neuroimmune Pharmacology, dated 2015. The title, A CB2 selective cannabinoid suppresses T cell activities and increases T regulatories and interleukin-10. In this particular paper, what they're discussing is not cannabidiol or THC, but chemicals that they're similar to CBD and THC in that they bind specifically to the CB2 receptor. And what they're excited about was the discovery that when you stimulate those receptors, it suppresses T cell activities. It inhibits the immune system. And why they're happy about this, that they've demonstrated that it does reduce your immunity because, hey, I'll just read this. It says, what this does is it shows that these CB2 selective agonists are useful therapeutic agents to prolong graft survival in transplant patients and strengthens their potential as a new class of immunosuppressive agents with broad applicability. So they're excited about these guys because they can turn down the immune system and maybe allow you to receive a new liver or a new heart or a new kidney, all right, without your body attacking it with your immune system because they turn the immune system off. All right, here's another paper entitled Cannabidiol for Viral Diseases, Hyper Hope. And what is it saying here? What's the gist of it? It isn't saying that this kills viruses. What it's saying is that it reduces inflammation. Very often in viral illnesses, you will have an over-response of the immune system. And that over-response can do damage. If you have a brain infection and your immune system goes overboard, the immune system can damage brain tissue. And so sometimes you want to suppress activity. If you have you want your immune cells to work work well so that they kill the offending organism. You don't want them to work overtime so that they liquefy the tissue they're trying to save. And so they're saying here that cannabidiol, in cases where there is an excessive immune response, you might be able to bring it under control by adding some cannabidiol to reduce it. Okay, that's okay. That sounds okay to me. And there might be a role for cannabidiol even in something like coronavirus. However, you don't want to use this early in the disease. You would wait until you're already in a situation where you've got a serious fight with coronavirus going on. It's already a pretty significant disease, and it's taking its toll on the patient, and you are now you're facing what we call a cytokine storm, where your body is being overly aggressive, in your lungs. There, you might want to suppress it a little bit. So there could potentially be a role for some cannabidiol or some CB2 receptor activation. It looks like most of the population is ultimately going to contract this virus. Even after the quarantines are lifted, I don't think we're going to be truly safe until a vaccine comes out that's available to everybody. The vaccine is safe and effective. Once that happens, we can all relax. We don't have to worry about the boogeyman anymore. Until then, we're probably going to be wearing masks, except for people who may have had it already. Hopefully you can't get it again. The jury's still out on that. For those of us who haven't got it yet, when we do get the virus, it will take one of three forms. A, you'll get it and you'll have no symptoms. You won't even know that you got it. 20% of the people that end up getting COVID-19 don't know they have symptoms. Okay, I've said this in my other videos. Then B, you have mild to moderate symptoms. Mild to moderate symptoms, you're going to survive, and when it's over, you're not even going to have lung scarring. All right, you will go back to normal. It might take a while. One of the things that this virus does, in addition to affecting your type 2 pneumocytes and reducing the amount of surfactant in your lungs and causing an exuberant inflammatory response that's actually purulent, looks like a bacterial infection. So and on top of all that, this thing also goes after your hemoglobin, and it rips the iron out of the center of the hemoglobin molecule and causes free iron to be released, which has a tremendous oxidative effect, and that causes that oxidation ends up causing lipid peroxidation and cellular damage, and now you've got some anemia, and so you're tired sometimes for several weeks after the infection. That's still mild to moderate. Okay, that's still, for this disease, that's mild to moderate. The severe stuff, either you're going to die, this is going to kill you, or when it's over, you're going to end up with less lung than you had before it started. It's going to cause scarring off of a portion of your lung. And your lungs will, if you're 50, your lungs will be those of a 65 or a 70-year-old when this is finished. Now, how do you determine which category you're in? We all know that if you're really old, if you have pre-existing conditions, diabetes, pulmonary issues, heart disease, all that kind of stuff, we know that those individuals are in for a rough time. You want to not give it to those folks. But there are a lot of young people that end up with severe illness as well. There are a number of reasons why that is. Diet is a big factor. I'm preparing now to do a video on dietary things that can modulate the effect that the coronavirus has on us. Okay, but today the discussion is marijuana. Marijuana usage. Populations that smoke significant amounts of marijuana are at high risk for the bad stuff. And one of the reasons that they're at high risk for the bad stuff is because both cannabidiol and THC inhibit T-cell function. And that inhibition means that your primary military, the branch of military that is devoted to killing viruses, is on vacation. It is suppressed. And so this disease, this virus, doesn't just get a head start. It gets a mile head start. And so by the time your immune system wakes up and starts to respond, the disease is so advanced that now, in order to keep you alive, you have a full-scale war on your hands. And if you live, the battleground will be full of scar tissue. All right? marijuana can make that much of a difference. So when you're watching the news and they talk about certain populations that seem to be really susceptible to death and morbidity and mortality from this virus, think about the individual cases and take a look at pre-existing conditions, dietary habits, and marijuana usage. Those three play a very big role in how serious the infection is going to be for those that are infected. Now, this last paper, it's from the Journal of Neuroimmune Pharmacology, dated 2015, Effects of Cannabinoids on T-Cell Function and Resistance to Infection. Okay? Now, basically, their conclusion here is the same as what I've just said. In case you're wondering, is this politically motivated? Do I have I'm anti-marijuana and I'm just trying to use this to discourage people from smoking marijuana? Okay, for one thing, I'm not anti-marijuana. I believe in CBD for a lot of things. Okay, so I am not against CBD. I have a problem with THC. Okay, and I've made that clear in my other videos. And this is just another reason why it's probably not a good idea. So I'm just going to read the last sentence in the abstract for this paper. It says, an emerging area of investigation that is reviewed is evidence to support the conclusion that CB2 selective agonists, those are molecules that bind the CB2 receptors on those immune cells, are a new class of immunosuppressive and anti-inflammatory compounds that may have exceptional beneficial effects in a variety of conditions, such as autoimmune diseases and graft rejection, where it is desirable to dampen the immune response. Well, there you go. So, is it a good thing or a bad thing? It's a good thing if you're going after autoimmune diseases, because autoimmune diseases, I have a couple of them myself, and so I think that's a good thing. But when you're in the middle of a deadly viral pandemic, marijuana use is something that you might not want to do unless you're thinking about not living anymore, because based on what we have here, based on what we know about THC and CBD, the effects on the T cells, specifically the CD8 T cells, all right, it dampens them, it suppresses them. The evidence is impressive. If that's the case, all the other videos that I've done about things you can do to stimulate your immune response, such as the use of melatonin. Okay, those are to try to keep you alive. You want your immune system in tip-top shape. You want them having superpowers, so you can kill the virus early before it gets on the elevator and goes down into your lower respiratory tract. You want to attack early if you want to live. All right, marijuana slows things down so that your immune system, your military, doesn't wake up until the enemy is fully entrenched and has already moved into dangerous neighborhoods and set up booby traps. Okay? So keep that in mind. I hope that helps. So if you're vaping THC, if you're smoking blunts, smoking marijuana, if you're using wax, if you're getting THC into your blood or into your lungs, you might want to think about not doing that until this is over, or until you've been immunized, or until you get it and have survived, okay? So, for your future, something to think about. Thanks for watching.